Then Samson put his hands on the two center pillars that held up the temple, pushing against them with both hands. Pushing against them with both hands, he prayed, "Let me die with the Philistines." And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Okay, Judges chapter 16. Now, for the past couple of chapters, we've been looking at Samson, and I think chapter 14 was just kind of the story of his birth. Then we got to some of his, or maybe 13 was his birth, because I think 14 was the whole thing that happened at his wedding ceremony that he never actually wound up attending because he had a riddle that was supposed to basically be unsolvable, but on the last day he caved into his would-be Philistine wife, told her the answer. She told the ones that he made sort of a bet with, and then he got upset for them getting the answer that way. And then the following chapter, he was like, all right, I'm gonna go sleep with my wife now, but the Philistine woman's father's like, you stormed off. I thought for sure you were just, completely upset with her to the point that you wouldn't have wanted to marry her. So she's married to the best man. And then he's extra upset for that, destroys a bunch of Philistine stuff. They come and try to capture him. He gets taken in ropes by some of his fellow Israelites to the Philistines, breaks out, kills another 1,000 Philistines when that happens. And yeah, that's kind of what's happened with Samson thus far. But, basically, he's a rather wild kind of man. But all this stuff that's happening with the Philistines is to kind of help weaken them so that, the rest of Israel can essentially be freed from the Philistine rule. But we're getting to that. Let's just actually read the chapter here. Okay, so Judges 16. Here we go. One day Samson went to the Philistine town of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. Word soon spread that Samson was there, so the men of Gaza gathered together and waited all night at the town gates. They kept quiet during the night, saying to themselves, "When the light of morning comes, we will kill him." But Samson stayed in bed only until midnight. Then he got up, took hold of the doors of the town gate, including the two posts, and lifted them up, bar and all. He put them on his shoulders and carried them all the way to the top of the hill across from Hebron. Okay, so spends the night with a prostitute. Not entirely surprising for Samson. The other men of Gaza find out about it. So they waited at the town gates and said, when morning comes, we'll kill him. But then Samson wakes up at midnight, and I guess so as not to actually open the gates, or maybe because the gates were closed in a way that he couldn't open them, then he just took the entire gate structure and moved it. Let's check this footnote here. So, word soon spread. The footnote reads, that's in the Greek and Syriac versions and the Latin Vulgate. Hebrew lacks the word soon spread. Okay, so it would have just said Samson was there, so the men of Gaza gathered. Which, honestly, same general situation. It's just this gives an indication of how they might have become aware that Samson was there. Okay. Don't really have any other thoughts on that passage. I think it's about time we move on. And this is where we might start getting into some stuff about the hair. But let me not get ahead of myself. So, we are picking this up in verse 4. Sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in the valley of Sorek. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "Entice Samson to tell you what makes him so strong, and how he can be overpowered and tied up securely. Then each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver." So the Hebrew just says shekels, which, I mean, those would have just been what they called the pieces of silver. But in any case, so if 1,100 of those would have weighed about 28 pounds, I'm wondering what the current day coin equivalent would be. I don't know if that'd be more like a nickel or a dime. Probably, I mean, as far as composition, probably closer to a dime, given that it's made of silver. But not really sure of what the value of that would have been exactly. But in any case, it says each of us. It doesn't even say how many rulers of the Philistines were involved with this. So, still, that's probably a lot of money that she was going to get. And this also kind of implies, all but outright states, really, that Delilah would have been a Philistine, because otherwise, why would the Philistine rulers have had any idea of being able to entice her like that? Samson also previously attempted to marry a Philistine woman, so extra not surprising that Delilah would have been a Philistine. Anyway, verse 6. So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me what makes you so strong, and what it would take to tie you up securely." Samson replied, "If I were tied up with 7 new bowstrings that have not yet been dried, I would become as weak as anyone else." So the Philistine rulers brought Delilah 7 new bowstrings, and she tied Samson up with them. She had hidden some men in one of the inner rooms of her house, and she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." But Samson snapped the bowstrings as a piece of string snaps when it is burned by fire, so the secret of his strength was not discovered. Asks about his strength, and Samson essentially lies to her. He doesn't want to give up that information so quickly, and for good reason. But, yeah, I don't know. In the current day, you would think if, he really wanted to be married to, or even just fell in love with a particular woman, that there would be enough trust between them that he could share that kind of thing. But it does say just that he fell in love. It doesn't say that they're married or anything like that yet. So maybe he's still kind of testing that a bit. Basically lied to Delilah about the source of his strength. So then he snaps the bowstrings super easily and is not captured by the Philistines. Then we get to verse 10. Afterward, Delilah said to him, "You've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now please tell me how you can be tied up securely." Samson replied, "If I were tied up with brand new ropes that had never been used, I would become as weak as anyone else." Okay, quick context. We know from previous chapters that this is an absolute lie. Because just in the last chapter, some other Israelites came up to him, tied him with 2 new ropes to deliver him to the Philistines. He asked them not to kill him themselves and to just take them to the Philistines alive like that. He breaks out of the ropes, and that's when he kills 1,000 Philistines with a donkey's jawbone. Bleh, words. So we know for a fact that brand new ropes do not have an effect on him. But anyway, he tells another lie. And then verse 12. So Delilah took new ropes and tied him up with them. The men were hiding in the inner room as before, and again Delilah cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." But again Samson snapped the ropes from his arms as if they were thread. Then Delilah said, "You've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now tell me how you can be tied up securely." Samson replied, "If you were to weave the 7 braids of my hair into the fabric of your loom and tighten it with the loom shuttle, I would become as weak as anyone else." That's an interesting one. So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 braids of his hair into the fabric. Then she tightened it with the loom shuttle. Again she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." But Samson woke up, pulled back the loom shuttle, and yanked his hair away from the loom and the fabric. So again, that's 3 lies now that he has told to Delilah about the source of his strength. She clearly doesn't want to give up, I assume because of the money. But he is also not really caving in here. You would think at this point he would be done, with her. But when it says that he's in love, probably more so in like a lustful kind of way, to where he keeps coming back to her for those kinds of things. Footnote. As in Greek and Latin Vulgate, Hebrew lacks, "I would become as weak as anyone else." So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 braids of his hair. And okay. So basically, the Hebrew from which, they derive any translation of this. Well, so again, I've probably said this in other chapters, but for those who are new to my Bible studies, there's a couple of different texts that translators will pull from when trying to create their translations of the Bible. Because, a lot of them are incomplete in some parts, or, there's, some versions that include certain parts that others don't, even if they're not just, damaged. So there's kind of some work to do figuring out which versions to use and where. On the whole, thus far, it seems like the New Living Translation kind of errs more on the side of, hey, let's include stuff that would otherwise be missing from certain versions, from certain, ancient documents that we're getting our translations from. And then just kind of puts a footnote there saying, hey, here's what we did in our translation here. Here's how it could have been different. So the Hebrew would have cut it off right about there at the word shuttle, and then picked up again right here after the footnote. But basically, same kind of thing. Samson tells her his supposed weakness. She does the thing. He breaks out of it, though, because it's a lie. And we're at verse 15, I believe. Then Delilah pouted. How can you tell me I love you when you don't share your secrets with me? You've made fun of me 3 times now, and you still haven't told me what makes you so strong. She tormented him with her nagging day after day until he was sick to death of it. Finally, Samson shared his secret with her. My hair has never been cut, he confessed, for I was dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else. This right here is legit. I mean, it even says he finally shared his secret with her. So, third time wasn't so much the charm in Delilah's case. The fourth was. But, anyway. So now he finally tells the actual real secret. I don't know for sure if it was just his hair never being cut that was the source of his strength. On the whole, though, it was definitely the whole, Nazirite vow that he had, at least up to this point, upheld. So, yeah, this time's legit. And then we'll see what happens about it in verse 18. Delilah realized he had finally told her the truth, so she sent for the Philistine rulers. Come back one more time, she said, for he has finally told me his secret. So the Philistine rulers returned with the money in their hands. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep with his head in her lap, and then she called in a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. In this way, she began to bring him down, and his strength left him. Then she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. When he woke up, he thought, I will do as before and shake myself free. But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. So the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes. They took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and forced to grind grain in the prison. But before long, his hair began to grow back. Okay, so unsurprisingly, Delilah uses this secret against him, gets his hair shaved, which it says 7 locks, so like if somebody has what they call dreadlocks, that sort of hairdo, I guess, is what it would have been, just like large sets of it, I guess. Which, that stuff is not exactly easy to cut. That takes some work. I'm a little surprised he didn't get woken up in the process. But, it is what it is. Maybe he's a heavy sleeper. I'm known as somewhat of a heavy sleeper, at least among my family. I've slept through entire, apparently loud thunderstorms and such, so, Still don't know if I've had anything physical like that I've slept through. Anyway, I digress. Footnote there says, or she began to torment him. I guess instead of begin to bring him down. Greek version reads, he began to grow weak. And it specifically says right here, the Lord had left him. Now, I would assume more so that means like the strength that the Lord gave him had left. Not that he had been like completely abandoned by God entirely. In any case, he no longer had the blessing associated with the Nazirite vow because of his hair being cut. But then it also mentions his hair growing back here. Like that's important to note. In any case, he finally gets captured. They gouged out his eyes, so he's now blind. And he's been forced to grind grain in the prison. So not only is he a prisoner, he's doing forced manual labor as a prisoner. As a blinded prisoner without his former strength. Anyway. Okay, on to verse 23. The Philistine rulers held a great festival, offering sacrifices and praising their god Dagon. They said, "Our God has given us victory over our enemy Samson." When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered our enemy to us. The one who killed so many of us is now in our power." Half drunk by now, the people demanded, "Bring out Samson so he can amuse us." So he was brought from the prison to amuse them, and they had him stand between the pillars supporting the roof. Gonna pause there for a sec. So now that they've captured Samson, they're celebrating because it's like, hooray, this guy that has caused us so much trouble, killed thousands of our people, we finally captured him. Why they wouldn't just kill him outright, I don't know. I guess they either want to specifically make a display of him, or maybe they were planning on sacrificing him to Dagon, or doing... I don't know exactly what the plan was. But at this point, he is... let's see here. He was brought from the prison to amuse them. Not sure in what way he was supposed to be amusing them. But anyway, I had him stand between the pillars supporting the roof. Okay. I think I might just go through the rest of the chapter, because it all kind of ties together and wraps up the action pretty well. So, verse 26. Samson said to the young servant who was leading him by the hand, "Place my hands against the pillars that hold up the temple. I want to rest against them." Now the temple was completely filled with people. All the Philistine rulers were there, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof who were watching as Samson amused them. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me again. O God, please strengthen me just one more time. With one blow, let me pay back the Philistines for the loss of my 2 eyes." Then Samson put his hands on the 2 center pillars that held up the temple, pushing against them with both hands. Pushing against them with both hands, he prayed, "Let me die with the Philistines." And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and other relatives went down to get his body. They took him back home and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, where his father Manoah was buried. Samson had judged Israel for 20 years. So, it doesn't say it outright here, but, when he asks for his hands to be put against the pillars, maybe even right then he had the intent of trying to bring the entire place down. He might have just been asking for that so he had a feel for where the support was, so he had something to lean on. But in any case, he essentially asks God, to give him strength one last time. And while it's not directly stated word for word, the assumption is that, he asks for the strength so he can physically, push down and break the pillars and just cause the entire place to collapse. Killing all of, it says, 3,000 men and women were on the roof. And it specifically says all the Philistine rulers were there. So, without any rulers, gotta imagine that would throw the Philistines into a state of some kind of chaos. Now, maybe it'll come up later that they were more fully defeated or something to that effect. But if it doesn't, I think the assumption then is, well, they lost all their leaders, so it's just, yeah. So then Samson basically caused the downfall of the Philistine rule in Israel. Anyway. Okay. Not really any other thoughts in particular. Well, okay. Mentioning that Samson judged Israel for 20 years. It had said previously that there was, 20 years that he ruled while or something like that. And it was worded specifically the way that it was because there was no time that Samson was judge after the Philistines, because he died with the Philistine rulers. But anyway, also makes me wonder how old Samson would have been at this point if he had judged Israel for 20 years before his death. And really, the title judge, especially in Samson's case, really seems to more so just mean that, they're the person who did the most work against whoever was ruling over the Israelites at the time. Or something to that effect. Anyway. Alright. For real now, no other thoughts on the chapter. So that does it for Judges 16. Alright, so it seems the Philistines have finally pretty much been defeated. It's not stated outright, but it says all their leaders were there in the arena and died along with Samson and the 3,000 plus other Philistines. So I don't think they're much of a concern anymore, at the very least. But yeah, so Samson, yet again, showing how, not being careful who you trust can get you into trouble. But anyway, yeah. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. If you're seeing this over on Rumble, which I'm not even sure still works anymore, I've tried, I'm not sure what the deal is, but whatever. If you happen to see it there, give me a like over there. And of course, look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave your comments down below there with any thoughts you have. So that'll do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.